everyone, it's Emma, and I'm going to be talking about another controversial topic today. If you missed my last one, and you like to hear me talk about controversy, you can check it out right here. I talk about the environmental impacts of COVID-19, specifically the benefits. That's probably not something you thought you'd hear today. But today, I'm talking about why eating antibiotic-fed animals is contributing to the spread of disease. Yeah, that's controversial too. I love saying controversial stuff on the internet. It's gonna be another good one, another salty one. Even if you do like eating animals, then this video is for you because you might learn something today. Everyone might learn something today. I learned something when I was doing my research for this video. Okay, just a disclaimer, I am not a healthcare professional, I am not a scientist, I am not a researcher. All of this is based off my own research I found on the internet, though a lot of them are academic journals. I will be sure to leave all of my links down below for you to check out for yourself if you'd like to, but just remember to take everything I say with a grain of salt because after all, I'm just a YouTuber, what do I know? I'm also not claiming that COVID-19 is related to eating animals, just to keep that clear. All this video is just another argument to go vegan. It's that simple. If you're not vegan and you're kind of on the edge and thinking, why should I even go vegan? You can be sure to check out this video right here. I outline 30 plus ways why you should go vegan. None of them are for the animals, and here's another one. So we're at like 40 reasons now that you can go vegan that's not even for the animals. I'm not saying that that's not a reason to go vegan, but this is not what this video is about. But basically, most people think that in order to go vegan, you have to only be in it for the animals, but that's not true. And that's what I'm trying to kind of bust. You can go vegan for a plethora of reasons, but this is just another one. I'll also leave one of my videos linked down below about what veganism even is if you've never even heard of it. So be sure to check that out after this so you can learn more about veganism. So let's dive right in. Antibiotics save lives, but anytime antibiotics are used, they can contribute to the development and spread of antibiotic resistance. This is why we must be careful what we eat and how often we take them ourselves. 40% of antibiotics ever produced are used in animal feed, and then another statistic that I saw was that 70% of antibiotics ever created have been used in animals. So that's probably their food plus like injected into them to keep them from getting sick. So it is used to efficiently help pigs, cows, chickens, and turkeys gain weight to get them to slaughter sooner and to help them to be more profitable since they are sold by weight. This is when it gets a little fishy. So sure, animals are gonna need antibiotics because when they're crowded, multiple animals in a cage, because that's what factory farming is, they're gonna need antibiotics because they're gonna be getting sick all the freaking time. Like, can you imagine living with 5 or 10 other people in an area so small that you can't even turn around? Because that's basically what's happening to these animals. Imagine how sick you'd get. You're walking and you're standing in your own waste. You're coughing all over each other. It's a big mess. So clearly the animals are gonna need some antibiotics for that. Fine, I mean, factory farming shouldn't exist, but if they need the antibiotics to prevent the animals from getting sick, sure. But another problem comes with that 40% of the antibiotics ever created are used in their feed. Yeah, so that's not to keep them from getting sick. That's to plump them up and get them fatter sooner so that they don't have to spend so much money on the food and they don't have to spend so much time like nourishing them and giving them more antibiotics to keep them from getting more sick. And it's a vicious cycle, clearly. And we're just giving way too much antibiotics to factory farming. I will leave some of my favorite documentaries linked down below. If you'd like to learn more about this and more about the science and the processes and stuff, I'm not gonna get into that here because it's very controversial. It's very conspiracal. Is that a word? So if you're interested in learning about that for yourself, I'll leave it linked down below. So, of course, feeding the animals all of this antibiotics leads to antibiotic resistance, not only in them, but also in us, because humans consume the meat of these animals. Antibiotic resistance happens when bacteria start to survive and or grow even after being exposed to antibiotics that were meant to kill them. Resistance spreads through humans, animals, and even the environment. Resistance spreading can be minimized by reducing unnecessary use. But why is this a problem? Why should we even be concerned about this? So antibiotic resistance can be spread through meat when the animals are slaughtered, processed, and then consumed by us. Animal waste can also contain this antibiotic-resisting bacteria and can even get on the food we eat, such as lettuce, like that E. coli outbreak we had like a year ago or something. It happens to vegetables too. I'm not saying that you're gonna be 100% safe because you don't eat animals, but I think that the risk is a lot lower. Illnesses that were once easily treatable with antibiotics are now becoming more and more difficult to control and cure and oftentimes more expensive to treat. Infections from common bacteria can now be life-threatening. Animals used for food carry bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, and more, which can make humans sick. When animals are given antibiotics, even when it's just for fattening them up, the resistant bacteria continue to survive and thrive and can be passed on to humans. Even just handling raw meat or coming in contact with the livestock can make a human sick. That fact right there, if that's not enough to get you to quit eating meat, click that video up there about 30 plus reasons to go vegan. Like, not even vegan, but vegetarian. Just touching raw meat can make you sick. I like learn all this stuff and then I think to myself, why the heck did I used to eat meat? Why do we even eat meat? Factory farming. That's the main issue, because that's what's caused all this. This world bothers me. So if the use of antibiotics is not restricted or controlled, then what? I forgot about this fact and it just blew my mind a second time. So if the use of antibiotics is not controlled or resisted, this can increase the risk and the spread of bacteria from spreading across the globe. Coincidence? I think not. Though COVID-19 is a virus and not a bacteria, yeah, might be related. It's too early to tell. So it has been found that the resistance of some types of bacteria is as high as 50%. That means when you take that type of antibiotic or when an animal takes that type of antibiotic, it only works 50% of the time. Of course, that's not all of the antibiotics, but I don't know. It's just crazy to think about. China is currently the largest consumer of antibiotics for use in livestock. It is recommended that they restrict antibiotic use in order to sustain their levels of meat production. In other words, the use of antibiotics is not even helping them meet the demands of meat sold in the country. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes the use of antibiotics is used to keep animals alive for longer, keep them sick so they can still be slaughtered, and then fatten them up so they can be slaughtered sooner. But even with all that combined, the use of antibiotics in China is still not helping them to meet that demand of meat that they have in their country. So if anything, the use of antibiotics is hurting the supply and demand of meat. So maybe we should just stop. Well, we'll get into that later. At their current rate of antibiotic use in China, if they were to continue without making any changes, it would increase by 59% in the next 10 years. But it is possible. Countries like Denmark and the Netherlands have made huge changes when it comes to antibiotic use in animals used for food. They have been able to accomplish a reduction in antimicrobial use and were still able to keep sales around normal. But it's not just enough for a handful of countries to do this. All the countries need to make a change, and they all need to be advocates for each other to make the change as well. But the problem still lies with the fact that we can't just completely stop the use of antibiotic use in animals that we eat, specifically because they still get sick. If they were to stop using antibiotics in animals, this would make it really hard to control and keep the spread of disease down in the animals. So while we can't completely stop the use of antibiotics in animals, they should still be trying to stop the use of using them to fatten them up. They should use the antibiotics for their actual use, antibacterial, to get rid of the bacteria in the animals, to keep them from getting sick, to keep them from dying, to keep them from spreading the bacteria, and not to make them fatter to make more money. It all comes down to consumerism and money. Because all these people just want money from their factory farming animals, it's leading to the spread of diseases. And no one cares. I feel like I'm just talking into a void. Like, this is so important. Why is no one else caring about this? So let's talk about some things that we can do as consumers. Take antibiotics only when necessary for yourself. Because it's not only the animals that are making antibiotic resistance possible, it's also us. It's also doctors prescribing antibiotics when we don't need them, and us taking antibiotics when we don't need them. So, like, I'm not saying to not go get antibiotics, especially if it's going to benefit you and help you to live and help you to not be sick, but like, maybe just evaluate for yourself. If you're not that sick, do you really need an antibiotic? Because in the long term, it might have negative impacts on you. If you take an antibiotic now, you might be antibiotic resistant in the future for that same disease, that same sickness, and then it not be able to get treated later. Especially if it like comes back and it's worse later, and that's when you really need the antibiotic to work, and then it doesn't. I don't know, this is all hypothetical. Do it at your own risk. Of course, talk to your healthcare providers, your physicians. I just hope that they know what they're talking about as well, and they're not just doing it for the money. It all comes down to the money. Just like you've been hearing with COVID-19, wash your darn hands. I mean, of course, that's important in general to help you even contracting bacterial infections, but it's also important, especially after you handle food, especially after you handle meat. Quit eating meat and other animal products. Like, it's that simple. You're already getting antibiotics when you yourself are sick. Why do you want to consume more antibiotics when you're not sick and get them like secondhand from an animal? This is something I learned after going vegan, and it was just one of those like reassuring things for me that like, I am so glad I quit eating meat because not only is me taking an antibiotic making me antibiotic resistance, but also me eating antibiotics from an animal is also making me antibiotic resistant. It's just not good. It also makes me really uncomfortable now knowing that, and I read about this a lot in one of my favorite books called How Not to Die. I'm still reading that, if you remember the first time I mentioned it months ago. Even when you thoroughly scrub down a surface after handling meat, it's still not clean. the germs and the bacteria from that meat will remain on your surfaces for a long time. So it just makes me really uncomfortable now knowing that I was consuming that. I was using that same stuff to cut up like vegetables and stuff. You have to wash your hands after handling raw meat, after touching animals. You have to cook meat to a certain temperature or else it's still gonna have that bacteria in it. Like, it just sounds so dangerous. Why do we continue to eat meat? Like, as a society, it just blows my mind. So, if you still want to keep eating meat, be sure to thoroughly, I cannot stress this enough, thoroughly wash your hands, wash your surfaces, wash your utensils, wash everything, because that stuff's nasty. Ugh, sorry if you're a meat eater and you're watching me like totally roast meat. I hope it changes your mind. And of course, also try to use one set of like cutting board and a knife and area to do your meat, and then another one to do your fruit and vegetables and other produce and stuff. Just keep those two separated to try to avoid cross-contamination and stuff like that. Be sure to cook it to the right temperature because cooking it to the right temperature makes sure that you will not get sick and you will not get infected with anything that meat has on it. Another tip is to wash your hands after dealing with animals, and this is necessarily like your cat and your dog that you have in your house because they're pretty safe and they're not exposed to that many germs, but after dealing with like farm animals and wild animals, if you deal with them. And of course, be cautious when you travel and when you try new foods. Wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, wear a mask if you're sick. That's all I really have to say about tips as to how to avoid contamination by animals, as well as trying to mitigate the risks and the consequences of antibiotic resistance. Again, I'm not a healthcare professional. This is all just stuff I found on the internet. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Please do your own research. Please consult your doctors. I just wanted to bring this up to spread awareness about antibiotic resistance in general, how it might contribute to global pandemics, how it might contribute to your health overall through the rest of your life, and just tell you that this is another reason that you should go vegan. Like, and I think this is really incredible too, is that like, I went vegan kind of on a whim. Not really on a whim. I was just simply an environmentalist who knew that animal agriculture was terrible for the environment and I didn't want to support that with my money anymore. So I gave up animal products. The longer I'm vegan, the more I'm realizing this is the right choice, not only for me, but I personally think it's the right choice for everyone. And that's controversial too. I love saying controversial stuff on the internet. I think there's probably a better way that we can go about eating meat, but factory farming is messed up. That is a whole other topic that I might or might not dive into someday. I don't see any benefit to eating meat and other animal products, especially with this antibiotic resistance nonsense and with COVID-19 happening right now. But I do think there are some precautions we can learn from and we can take in the future to prevent stuff like this, like trying to reduce the amount of antibiotic resistance we have in ourselves and in the animals we eat, as well as slowing climate change, because like I mentioned in the climate change video about COVID-19, is that climate change does increase the spread and increase the severity of diseases. I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that because of climate change and the consumption of meat has led to this. This is not the first one. There are plenty of sources out there to tell you that there have been other diseases like Zika and Ebola that were caused by animals and the consumption of animals and climate change. So I'm not here to provide solutions. I'm just here to educate others. That's the sole purpose of this video, mostly is to make others aware of this issue, why we should be aware, why we should not be contributing to this, and why we should continue to educate each other. Vote with your dollar, vote in your actual elections. We can make a difference. Our small changes really do have an impact in the long run. If you like this interesting, very different topic, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, I don't normally talk about this type of stuff. Though I do talk about environmentalism, that's just my word. I need to coin it officially. Well, I do talk about environmentalism, minimalism, veganism, zero waste, stuff like that. Subscribe if you want to see more, if this didn't scare you away and you're still watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more from me, you can check out my Instagram and my website. And until next time, remember that these small changes you make have a big impact in the long run. Bye guys. And then another antibiotic resistance can be spread. Okay, just behind the scenes, because now it's funny. Oh, look at my nice outfit. I'm wearing sweatpants. The resistance bacteria continued. Resistance bacteria? The resistant. There we go. That's the word. One day you'll be able to tell your grandkids that, like, yep, I was there. COVID-19. Okay, what am I saying? Let's wrap this up. Stay safe out there. It's scary.